hydrologic data for up to 40 years. I wouldn't recommend running that. We've done 5 years in 6 minutes and kind of scale it up from there. We haven't stress tested it to see when it would break or just the computer resources would be exhausted, but that would be an interesting test. Okay, so normally you would go to the download page, and you'll notice this is WMOST 2.0. So 2.0 had some bugs that we've fixed. So 2.1 will be out once it goes through the process of being vetted. So you actually have the first copies of version 2.1. It's not publicly available. It's very special. So, oh yes, and I want to introduce the case study. This is the case study we'll use throughout the demonstration, so we'll refer back to it. So briefly, the context is that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Water Management Act was passed in 1986. It regulates daily withdrawal volumes of 100,000 gallons per day. And the act states that the water resources are public resources that require sustainable management practices for well-being and safety of our citizens, protection of natural environment, and for economic growth. So again, you see the balance of social, economic, and environmental. So it has the sustainability clause, and in 2014, the act was revised with quantitative requirements to achieve sustainable use. And so it is in this context that we apply it. And one example in the act that is an example of integrated water management is infiltration stormwater practices under the act qualify for additional withdrawal allowance. So you take the average annual recharge of an infiltration stormwater practice, and it can provide you with additional withdrawal allowance. I'll just say that there's caveats to that. There's demand management practices and other things that must be in place before this allowance is made, but it is a very specific example of recognizing the connection between stormwater and water supply. So the town that we applied the model for was the town of Westboro. It's about almost 20,000 population, and it has 5 source subbasins, meaning they withdraw water from 5 subbasins you see outlined in red here. They're 100% public water, which yields about 2 to 2.2 million gallons per day of demand, and they meet that with 9 wells, 1 reservoir, and 2 water treatment plants distributed in these 4 subbasins. And it's 90% sewered, and that wastewater treatment plant is in this subbasin here, the Suasco subbasin. Actually, this is the water treatment plant here. Here's the wastewater treatment plant. And it services multiple towns, not just Westboro. It's a huge treatment facility. And as I mentioned, 4 source subbasins, and 3 of these are cold water fish resources. So under the act, there's consultation to try to minimize pumping and demand in those subbasins. And that leaves us 1 subbasin, which is the Chauncey subbasin. So we would want to minimize pumping in these to alleviate pressure on the cold fish resource and shift demand to here, but without, of course, causing impact in that subbasin. So we're going to focus on the Chauncey subbasin for our case study. And these are the components that we're going to add. So we're back to our schematic, which we'll come back to again and again. So the question is, what is the most cost-effective set of actions for meeting a greater demand, so shifting demand from the other subbasins while maintaining stream flow? So we're going to specify our land areas. Then that's going to give us yield runoff and recharge into the surface and groundwater. We're going to specify 1 lake that's within the town boundaries in that subbasin. There are 2 wells and a water treatment plant, so we'll specify capacities for those. And we have potable water users, that will be the demand time series. We have interbasin wastewater because it goes to the other source subbasin, so it's an export from our modeled area. And we have neighboring septic that we need to consider. So the town next door has septic systems, and that a small part of that is within this subbasin. So we'll specify those as private discharges. And we're going to specify 2 goals. One is the minimum demand time series, and the other one is stream flows. So now we get to open up WMOST, which, before we do that, I'm going to tell you about the first step we're going to do. We're almost there. Based on hydrology databases, so this is some of the